Shana Tova, everybody. Wishing everyone a happy and healthy new year. It's so awesome to see you back here today on this second day of the new year. There's something really exciting and wonderful about the fact that there are 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. In fact, trivia, for those of you who are here at the beginning of the second day Rosh Hashanah service, so already you are an insider group, so this is a good piece of insider trivia. You might know that many festivals and Jewish holidays, when celebrated outside of Israel, are celebrated for 2 days, whereas in Israel they're only celebrated for 1. The Yontif days of Sukkot, the Yontif days of Passover, right? We have 2 Seders. In Israel, they would only have 1. It's a special diaspora thing because apparently word travels more slowly out to the diaspora, so we get like an extra chance in case we missed the signal fires on the first day. That we get that second chance to be able to celebrate Pesach on the right day. Clearly at a time when the ancient rabbis could not have perceived of the idea of satellites setting and calibrating our phone tower clocks to one another, or instantaneous communication worldwide. Rosh Hashanah is different. There are actually 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. It's not like in Israel there's 1 and Chutz La'aretz, here in diaspora there are 2. There are actually 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. And for me, there's something really cool and special about that. Because the new year is about starting off on the right foot. But sometimes we make a bad first impression. And I want to offer us the kavanah of the second day of Rosh Hashanah, having a first chance at the first day of a new year, as something to carry us into this next year. This next year where we'll be doing so many things in hybrid ways, where we'll be returning to things in fits and starts, coming back, quarantining, coming back, and then deciding not to make that same choice again for a couple more weeks. To take this example, this intention of the first day of the new year, Rosh Hashanah, day 2, as a permission to be able to try something again for the first time. After 18 months where our social skills have atrophied a little bit, to not feel like we need to get every first impression right the first time. We might find, at least I've been finding, that sometimes I talk too much in these first re-encounters. And that I'm gonna need a second Rosh Hashanah for that. A second chance at a first impression. And so for those of us who are gathered here at the very beginning of our Rosh Hashanah Day 2 service, I wish you, for the second time, a happy first day of the new year. A year of new beginnings and new re-beginnings as we enter into 5782. And so we begin our service on page 140 with Matovu as we join in singing with the voices of our Makela. So I want us to take a minute and run through our little checklist. Machzor, check. Talit, check. Do you know where the mute and unmute button is? Check. If you haven't hit that check mark yet, make sure you find it so that you can mute and unmute as needed during the service. Finding the gallery view button. This is my most favorite button in all of Zoom because it changes the view from being able to focus on just the person talking, especially if, like this morning, unlike at most Or Hadash services that have been digital this past year and a half, the leader is spotlighted, right, pinned on your screen by the host. Hitting that gallery view button goes from the view of just me to the view of all of us, the congregational view, where we can look all around the room and see who's here and say Shana Tova to Manny and Pat and Carolyn and Vivian and Sandy and Ruth and Bernie and Manny and Shelly and Jerry and
Rabbi, you're muted.
Okay, commandment 615, because we all know that 613 is thou shalt not fold one's talit or sign off of the Zoom during announcements. Commandment number 615, thou shalt not mute the rabbi. Where was I? Right. Shana Tova to Jason and Eileen and Bill and Kim and Jeff and Bruce and Leslie and Rick and Jen and Michelle and Doug. Shana Tova to everyone who is here, right? Because when we click on that gallery view button, we go from just seeing me to seeing the entire congregation. So find that button on your screen and click it and unclick it and see what it does to your perspective of the service. Because we are each here, as I talked so much about last year on the high holidays, in our own mikdash ma'at, in our own small sanctuary. And so take a second and check around. Is there anything around you that is a distraction? Is your cell phone facing up on the table in front of you with its notifications turned on? If you needed to stay in contact with your family on Rosh Hashanah, that's one thing. But if you think it's going to be something that'll pull you away, just turn it upside down. Put it on silent. Is there something around you or in front of you that you're working on for work? Are there tabs open on your computer that are just going to distract you? Is Facebook open on your computer? Take a second and make sure that the only tabs open on your computer are ones that serve you in this moment, that create the ambiance of the sanctuary that you've created around you. A space filled perhaps with beautiful objects or plants, natural light, perhaps your shofar on the table, a little mid-morning snack, and of course, for those who wear one, a talit. As we turn to page 142, bless, O my soul, the one, abundant one, my God, how great you grow. In majesty and beauty you are dressed, wrapping yourself in light like a garment, stretching out the heavens like a shawl. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahit hatef batzitzit. And as we kiss the corners of our atara, which it would be great if I could find, there it is. And we wrap ourselves in those fringes, we complete the constellation of our sacred space, wrapping ourselves in the mitzvot, wrapping ourselves in that connection to one another. As we turn together to page 194 for Baruch She'amar. And please do unmute for the responses, which you'll call out between, as I pause between the lines. Baruch She'amar v'haya ha'olam. Baruch Hosei v'Reishit.
Baruch
Hosei Baruch Gozer Umakayim.
Baruch
Baruch
Shema.
Merachem al haaretz.
Baruch
Merachem al habriot.
Baruch Shema.
Baruch Mishalem Sachar Tov Lireav.
Baruch
Baruch Mavir Afela Umevio Rav.
Baruch Shema.
Chai La'ad V'Kayam LaNetzach.
Baruch
Neumatzil.
Baruch Shema.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ha'el ha'varachamanu mehulal b'fi amo meshubach umfor b'lishon chasidav v'avadav v'shirei Davidav tehecha nehalel Adonai Eloheinu Yachid chei ha'olamim melech meshubach umfor adei ad shemo hagadol Baruch atah Adonai melech mehulal batishbachot.
Amen.
We want to call forward Manny Stewerman to share a psalm not traditional from the book of Psalms, but written especially for this sort of moment. Manny. And we're in our you know what, before you read, let me just give a quick shout out to everyone. I did not put on our checklist to be able to find our High Holidays supplement, which in the back has all of the English readings that are not found in the Siddur, and in the front has a curated collection of readings, some serious, some whimsical, including Reb Yoda's High Holiday supplement, compiled lovingly by Jules Mermelstein. And so we join with Manny as he reads for us on page 21 of the supplement.
Psalm for Zoom by Rabbi Susan Gulak. Zoom, normally that means caroming from one thing to another. Now it means the opportunity to stop, to connect with community from distant rooms, to be here and Jerusalem and Sacramento all at once, to be still in meditation and active in thought and creation, singing with others while alone on my couch. I am grateful that even in separation, we can be together. You who rule all time and space, join together with us in this moment. Help us to feel joined in you and to know with you we are never alone.
Thank you. Page 262. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 El Bekocho, hallelujah, Birki Hauzo, hallelujah, Vigvurotav, hallelujah, Kerov Gudlo, hallelujah, 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 Beteka shofar, hallelujah, Benevel vechinor, hallelujah, Betofu machol, hallelujah, Beminim veugav, hallelujah, 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 Betzil tzalei shama, hallelujah, Betzil tzalei trua, kol hanshama tehalelia, kol hanshama tehalelia, hallelujah, 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 kol hanshama tehalelia, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen ve'amen. Baruch Adonai mitzion, shochen Yerushalayim, hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Elohim, Elohei Yisrael osei niflot levado. Uvaruch shem kvodo leolam v'yimelech kvodo et kol haaretz. Amen ve'amen. Page 270. I want to invite us to open our machzorim to that page. But I want us first to take a journey with Alan Liu that he walks us through in his text. And in case you haven't read it, it's one of my favorite high holiday preparation texts. This is real, and you are completely unprepared. As a kavanah, an intention for getting ready for Hamelech. And he writes, we find a comfortable position to sit in and allow perhaps our eyes to close. The Baal Shem Tov explained with the following parable. In the palace of the king, there are many secret chambers, and there are keys for each chamber. But one key unlocks them all, and that key is the axe. The king is the Lord of the universe, the Baal Shem explains, and the palace is the house of God. The secret chambers are the sfirot, the ascending spiritual realms that bring us closer and closer to God when we perform commandments, such as blowing the shofar with the appropriate intention. And the secret keys are the kavanot, and the axe, the key that opens every chamber and brings us directly into the presence of the king, wherever God may be. The axe is the broken heart. For it says in the Psalms, God is close to the brokenhearted. Imagine this. You are out for a social evening with those very close to you, family, close friends, or both, obviously outdoors. The evening begins with a wonderful dinner, and then out of some vague sense, or perhaps a very strong sense of family tradition and obligation, you all go off after dinner to participate in a basically empty religious ritual. Or perhaps you are by yourself, but you attend this empty ritual because you have very pleasant associations of having done so with your family and friends back in Cleveland or Detroit, New Jersey, West Oak Lane, Dresher, Fort Washington. Or perhaps it is not so empty for you. Perhaps you feel a great deal at this service, but you're not really sure if it's you or the service, if it's the ritual itself or the peculiar pain you have been feeling in your heart lately. But you don't really mind attending this ritual. After all, it's tradition. And even though you're sleepy from all the food, the music is lovely. And the officiant is sometimes mildly amusing when she speaks. But basically, you go, not because you anticipate that anything significant will happen, but rather because this is what the family does every year at this time. Or this is what at least you used to do with them. It's what you've always done, so you will do it this year too. But this time, as you enter the space, everything feels different, so you look more closely. There are 3 immense books at the head of the sanctuary. A presence can be felt in the room so palpably that you can almost see it. It hovers over the table like a colloid suspension, a smoky mist. Now you hear a deep, disembodied voice calling out names, and every time a name is called, it is written in one of the books. There is no hand, no quill. The pages of the book simply rustle and then quiver. And when the rustling stops, the name is already written. It is written in the book of life, while sighs of relief go up all around the Zoom. Or it is written in the book of death, while a cold silence grips the sanctuary of sanctuaries. Amid much shuddering of shoulders and the sudden sucking in of breath, or it is written perhaps in the book of the intermediaries, those who will spend the next 10 days in a state of suspended judgment, in the process of transformation, after which they will be entered into one of the other 2 books. All of a sudden, you hear your own name being called, and you want to cry out, "No, no, no, not now! I didn't realize this was real. I thought this was some empty ritual. I am completely unprepared. I thought it was just what I did after dinner with my family. Please give me some more time. Let me do something to affect the outcome of all of this." But the voice continues to intone your name, and there is a rustling of the pages of the books, and your heart is gripped with terror as you wait to see in which one your name will be inscribed. Maybe you've just walked in cold and now are caught completely by surprise, or maybe you're not completely unprepared. Maybe you began your preparations the Saturday night before at midnight at Slichot. Okay, at 7:30 p.m. Maybe you thought a little bit about this during the month of Elul, or 7 weeks ago at Tisha B'Av. But as you walk into that sanctuary and hear the names read, the books open before you, an image strikes, the image of glory enthroned, the spirit that innervates the entire universe, the divine catalyst that in the beginning, mirachefet al panei hamayim, that hovered over the waters, that force that still flows through all birds, people, trees, animals, doing that work of mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit, renewing creation day by day. That force which today sits on high, not high as opposed to low, a geographical distinction, but high as opposed to ignored. That force is front and center, and we let it flow through each of us, connecting us to one another, connecting us to this ritual in this space, in this time, as we enthrone it in our hearts this morning and allow it to dwell there for these next 10 days. HaMelech Yoshev al Kisei Ram v'Nisa שוכן עד מהרום וקדוש שמו וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני לישרים נאוות תהילה בפי ישרים תתרומם ובדברי צדיקים תתברך ובלשון החסידים תתקדש ובקרב קדושים תתהלל ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל ברינה יתבהר שמך מלכנו בכל דור ודור שכן חובתו יתונים לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו להודות להלל לשבח לפאר לרומם להדר לברך להלל ולקלס על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני אל מלך גדול בתשבחות אל ההודאות אדון הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה מלך אל חי העולמים. We find our unmute buttons for the response to Baruch Hu as we rise in spirit or in body, filled with that sense of community, ready to greet one another as we call ourselves together for Shacharit. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. As we bless the source of life, so we are blessed. And the blessing gives us strength and makes our Shabbat clear. And the blessing gives us peace and the courage to dare. As we bless bless the source of
Rosh
his
Hashanah.
blessed. Barechu et Adonai
Baruch
Baruch Adonai Olam.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam. Be seated. Be seated. And let's all find our mute buttons again as we resonate back and forth. My goodness, it's resonating. Be seated. Is one of the things over there? That's like a resonating problem here. Ah, there we go. We found it. How fun. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yoter or uvorei choshech oseh shalom uvorei et hakol or olam beotzer chaim orot meofel amar vayehi. We call forward Edith Lane to share a reading on page 291. What? Oh, Edith, are you here this morning? Carolyn Savitsky, will you read on page 291?
I will.
Oh boy, thanks, Carolyn.
Sure. White butterflies with single black finger paint eyes on their wings dart and settle, eddy and mate over the green tangle of vines in Labor Day morning stream. The year grinds into ripeness and rot, grapes darkening, pears yellowing, the first Virginia creeper twinning crimson with grasses dry straw to burn. The new year rises, beckoning across the umbrella on the sand. I begin to reconsider my life. What is the yield of my impatience? What is the fruit of my resolve? I turn from frantic white dance over the jungle of productivity, and slowly a nagun slides cold water down my throat. I rest on a leaf spotted red. Now is the time to let the mind search backwards like the raven, loosed to see what can feed us. Now the time to cast the mind forward, to chart an aerial map of the months. The new year is a great door that stands across the evening, and Yom Kippur is the second door. Between them are song and silence, stone and clay pot to be filled from within myself. I will find there both ripeness and rot, what I have done and undone, what I must let go in the waning days, and what I must take in. With the last tomatoes we harvest, the fruit of our lives.
Thanks, Carolyn. Page 294. Tidbarach tzurenu malkeinu vegoalenu borei kedoshim. Who are holy beings, their beloved, clear of mind, and courageous, their will and God's are one. Raising their voices in constant gratitude, they marvel at every detail of life, granting each other loving permission to be exactly who they are. When we listen for their sweet voices, we can hear the echo within our own souls. Page 296. את שם האל המלך הגדול הגיבור והנורא הקדוש הוא וכולם מקבלים עליהם על מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים באהבה רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח בשפה ברורה ונעימה קדושה כולם כאחד עונים ואומרים ביראה Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivaot, Melech kol haaretz kivodo. Ve'ofanim v'chayot hakodesh b'rahash gadol, mitnasim l'umat serafim, l'umatam mishabachim ve'omrim, Baruch kevod Adonai mihimkomo. La'el Baruch nimo titenu el melech al chai v'kayam. Zmirot yomeru v'tishbachot. Every day creation is renewed. Wake up and see unfolding in the spreading light of dawn, the world and all it contains, coming into being, new, fresh, filled with divine goodness and love. Every day creation is renewed, reflected in the great lights. We see a new day, one precious day, eternity. Or Hadash, Al Tzion Tair, Or Hadash, Al Tzion Tair, Or Hadash, Al Tzion Tair, Or Hadash, Al Tzion Tair. V'nizkeh chulanu bimheira leoro. V'nizkeh chulanu bimheira leoro. Or Hadash, Al Tzion Tair, Or Hadash, Al Tzion Tair, Or Hadash, Al Tzion Tair, Or Hadash, Al Tzion Tair. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. I want to invite everybody to find that magical gallery view button. It's probably in the upper right-hand corner of your screen if you're on a computer. If you're on an iPad or a tablet or a phone, it may be down on the lower left. But find that button that goes from Bema view to sanctuary view, right? Where we can see each and every one of us. And I want to invite you to find, if you're a talis wearer, the 4 tzitziot, the fringes on the corners of your talit. And if you're not a talis wearer, I want you to take a look and find 4 spots in this sanctuary of sanctuaries and draw them together in your heart as we prepare for the Shema. And we focus on oneness, on unity, as we gather our voices together, the corners of our tzitziot together, in love. V'avienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot haaretz v'tolichenu kommiut le'artzenu ki el poel yeshuot ata v'kerevtanu l'shimcha gadol sela be'emet le'odot lecha al yachedcha be'ahava Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta b'ham b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha v'aderech u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha u'kashartam leot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chetavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'sha'arecha v'haya im shemoa tishmoa mitzvotai shenochi mitzavcha atem hayom. We continue silently with one of the 2 biblical selections that follows. Adonai Elohechem emet. Rabbi Elise Wechterman and David Nirenberg, if you guys could unmute and read for us the below the line on page 315.
Each second we live is a new and unique moment of the universe, a moment that never was before and will never be again. And what do we teach our children? We teach them that 2 and 2 is 4, and that Paris is the capital of France. When will we also teach them what they are? We should say to each of them, do you know what you are? You are a marvel. You are unique. In all of the world, there is no other child exactly like you. In the millions of years that have passed, there has never been another child like you. And look at your body. What a wonder it is. You may become a Shakespeare, a Michelangelo, a Beethoven. You have the capacity for anything. Yes, you are a marvel. And when you grow up, can you then harm another who is like you, a marvel? You must cherish one another. You must work. We all must work to make this world worthy of its children.
Thanks, David. Page 318. Tilo lel elyon baruch hu umvorach Moshe uMiriam u'bnei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha rabba ve'amru chulam Micha mocha, micha mocha, micha mocha, micha mocha, micha mocha, micha mocha b'helim Adonai. Mika mocha, mika mocha, mika mocha, mika mocha, mika mocha, mika mocha, nedar bakodesh, nora tehilot oseh, pele nora tehilot oseh, pele. Shir Hadasha, Shivchu Geulim Leshimcha, Al Sefatayam Yachad Kulam, Hodu V'Himlichu Ve'ameru, Adonai Yimloch Leolam, Vahed Adonai Yimloch Leolam, Vahed. We rise in spirit or in body. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma ve'ezrat Yisrael, uvdechinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael, Ko aleinu Adonai, tzvaot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch ata Adonai, Ka'al Yisrael. Yeah, and so this is where the transition in the nusach, in the melody of our service, the mode of our service shifts to that Amidah motif. So we stand, body or in spirit, and with the exception of Hamelech, which is at least in a mode and with an extra one fewer letter distinct for the high holidays, we move into the pieces of the service that are not indistinguishable from any other Shabbat morning and many weekday mornings, right? We always sing Micha Mocha, we always sing the Shema, we always do Or Hadash, we always do Psalm 150 and Baruch She'amar. But as we reach this Amidah, the second Amidah of the new year, or perhaps for those of you who are here at the beginning of the service, the first Amidah of the new year. Hey, if you weren't here at the beginning of the service, you'll have to ask one another in the chat. Sorry, 10 o'clockers. We begin with the Avot Vimot and Gevurot, but before continuing with the Kedusha, we reach Unatanet Tokef, changing our celebratory mood for the beginning of the year to one that is reflective, introspective, and real. Not that celebration is not real, but the kind of real that hits to the core. Who shall live and who shall die, who by fire, who by water? We let these ancient words sink in our contemporary moment. And then as we go through the silent part of our Amidah, we see how our prayer is transformed by these questions, inviting ourselves into the journey of our High Holiday liturgy. Our Amidah for Rosh Hashanah morning begins on page 324. Donai sifatai tiftach, ufi agid tehilatecha. Open my lips, beloved one, and let my mouth declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Agadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imot U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Nehem Leman Shemo B'Ahava Mi'yesod Hachamim U'Nevonim U'Milemed Da'at Mevinim Eftecha Fi B'Tfilah U'B'Tachanunim Lechalot u'lechanein Pnei Melech Malchei Amlachim V'Adonei Adonim Zochreinu lechayim Melech Hafetz b'chayim V'chotvenu b'sefer hachayim L'manecha Elohim echayim Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magein Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah. Page 330. Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Rav L'Hoshia Morid Hatal Mechalkel L'chaim B'chesed Mechayei Kol L'chai B'rachamim Robim Somech Novlim B'rofei Cholim U'matir Asurim U'mekayem Emunato L'shenei Afar Michamochav Baal Gevurot U'medom Melach Melech Mehemit U'mechayei U'matzmiach Yeshua Michamochav Harachamim Harachamim Zocher Yetzurav L'chaim Berachamim V'ne'eman atah l'chayot kol chai Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei kol echai. As the ark is open, I want to call Kim Wilson forward to read from our Rosh Hashanah supplement her own words of poetry, Reuniting. Kim.
Can everyone hear me?
Kim?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Reuniting. God believes in me, but do I believe in God, an all-powerful God? This mysterious, frowning force of my early years, when I failed or was uncertain, this God would pounce on my errors, confirmed by people even my existence was wrong. Words I could not swallow, Creeds I could not believe. Christian family with Jewish habits. The recurring dreams began. Inner light, holy wisdom, Shekinah guides, breathes. As we untangle old narratives and reunite our awareness of inner landscapes, lead us with gentleness and mercy. Remind us that we are your people, loved as we are, beyond our understanding, and that nothing can break our covenant with you. You chose us. We belong to you. Klal Yisrael.
Shkoch. Page 348. ובכן אתה לקדושה כי אתה אלוהינו מלך ונתן את תוקף קדושת היום כי הוא נורא ואיון ובוא תנשא מלכותך ויחון וחסד כיסאך ותשב עליו באמת. In the English on page 347 together. Now we declare the sacred power of this day, which is the most awesome and solemn of days, when your rule is established over all and your throne set in place by the power of love, and you come forth to govern in truth. True it is that you are our judge. You alone can reprove. You alone can know. You alone are witness to all deeds. It is you who shall write, you who shall seal what is written, you who shall read, and you who shall number all souls. You alone can remember what we have forgotten, but it is you who shall open the book of remembrance. But its contents shall speak for themselves, for it bears the imprint of all, which our deeds and our lives have inscribed. And when the great shofar is sounded, a small, quiet voice can be heard, and the heavenly beings are thrown into fright, seized by a terrible dread. They declare, behold, the day of judgment has arrived, when even those in heaven's court are judged, for none can be exempt from justice's eyes. And all who come into the world pass before you like sheep for the shepherd. For just as a shepherd numbers its flock, passing the herd by the staff, so do you make us pass before you, and number and count and determine the life, one by one, of all who have life breath within. You decide for each creature its cycles of life, and you write down its destined decree. On Rosh Hashanah, all is written and revealed, and on Yom Kippur, the course of every life is sealed. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. כמה יעברון וכמה יעברון, מי יחיה ומי במוות, מי בקיצו ומי לא בקיצו. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. מי באש ומי במים, מי בחרב ומי בחיה, מי ברעב ומי בצמא, מי ברעש ומי במגפה, מי בחניקה ומי בסקילה. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. מי ינוח ומי ינוח, מי ישקט ומי יטרף, מי ישלב ומי יתייסר. מראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. מי יהיה עני ומי יהיה אשר, ומי ישפל ומי ירום. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. בראש השנה ייכתבון, וביום צום כיפור ייחתמון. Page 252. ותשובה ותפילה וצדקה מעבירין את רוע הגזירה. But tshuva, tefillah, and tzedakah make easier what God may decree, make easier what life holds in store, make easier facing the world, make easier facing ourselves. Uteshuva, utefila, utzedaka, ma'avirin et roa hagzeira. Continue on page 356 as we remain standing. Page 356. עשה למען שמך וקדש את שמך מקדשי שמך בעבור כסוד שמך הנערת והנקדש כסוד שיח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש. דרי מעליים דרי מטה ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו כבודו מלא עולם משרתיו שואלים זה לזה איה מקום כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו ממקומו יפן ברחמים ויחונם המייחדים שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד פעמיים באהבה שמה אומרים שמה ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד אחד הוא אלוהינו אבינו מלכנו ומושיענו ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מה אדיר שמך בכל הארץ והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה. Our Kedusha continues the voices of our Makela.
לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד עוד לך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד עוד לך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי
continue our Amidah silently, to the words in our Siddur, the words in our hearts, the commentary on the pages at our own pace, in our own way on this Rosh Hashanah morning. I also want to mention alternative Amidah passages and reflections and meditations on pages 383 through 386. We are seated as we complete our silent prayer at our own pace. בספר חיים ברכה ושלום, ברכה ושלום ופרנסה טובה, נזכר וניכתב לפניך, אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל, לחיים טובים ולשלום. Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. Page 382. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel. Ve'imeru, amen. Shana Tova, everybody. It is wonderful to see everyone here on this first day of the new year, on this Rosh Hashanah morning number 2. We are here at the beginning of our Torah service, which begins on page 464, and I want to share a little secret that some people don't know, although some people do, and that's that I am not as alone in the sanctuary this morning as it might seem. Yes, definitely, I am here with my intrepid co-service leader, partner in crime, Jeff Jarvis, who hates it when I give him shout-outs, so I apologize, Jeff. But I have to, like, at least one per service. Jeff Jarvis, everybody on the Zoom. But I am not completely alone, Jeff and I. We are not completely alone, Jeff and I, here in the sanctuary.
Click right there.
What? Oh, because I am joined this morning by almost Rabbi Sarah Brammer-Shlay, who is going to be our parental leave rabbi at Or Hadash between the end of Yom Kippur and just after Hanukkah, while I am out on parental leave, getting to spend a lot of really wonderful quality time with baby Eitan and getting to know him a lot and getting to, life support him before he's old enough to go to preschool, all of those good things that parental leave means. And so this morning, Sarah's joined us all morning actually here in the sanctuary. She's going to give our Devar Torah this morning. She's going to help us during the Torah service. We're going to all get to know her a little bit. So I just wanted to share that little secret.
Yes.
Because it might seem like I am here all alone this morning, but I am not. And so I'm just
everyone.
thrilled to be here
So
with
great
Sarah
to be here
this morning.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we begin our Torah service all together, all of us, because we are here making a minyan for one another to be able to read Torah and to be able to share words of Torah and to be able to gather here in this ritual on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. So let me go ahead and grab my Torah service honors sheet as we begin together on page 464. Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai v'ein k'maasecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai imlach le'olam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim heitiv avirtzonecha et Zion tivnei chomot Yerushalayim tivnei chomot Yerushalayim kivecha levad batachnu melech el ram venisa Adon olamim. We rise in spirit or in body as our ark is open. Vayehi bin sohar hon vayomer Moshe kum Adonai ve'afutzu oivecha ve'anusu misanecha mipanecha ki mitzion tetzei Torah u'devar Adonai mirushalayim baruch shnatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Page 468. And it is this one. Do you want to hold on to this? Oh, cool. Nice. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim, Berav Chesed V'Emet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon V'Fesha V'Chata V'Nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Erech Apayim, Berav Chesed V'Emet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon V'Fesha v'chata v'nakeh. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum v'Chanun, Erech Apayim, v'Rav Chesed v'Emet, Notzer Chesed la'alafim, Nosei Avon v'Fesha, v'Chata v'Nakeh, V'ani tefilati, Lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chastecha Aneni be'emet ishecha V'ani tefilati Lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chastecha Aneni be'emet ishecha V'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chastecha Aneni be'emet ishecha. Page 470. 1, 2, 3. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Wait, everyone needs to unmute themselves and repeat. Let's try that again. Shema
Israel,
Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'Norah Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh v'Norah Shemo.
Gadol Adonai Iti, Uneromema Shemo Yata. If you want to carry around to those guys, you can. Lecha Adonai Gevura v'Tiferet ve'anetzach le'od. Ki hu b'shamayim u'va'aretz, ki hu b'shamayim u'va'aretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlecha v'yamid na'aseh lechol v'rosh. Romemu, Adonai Eloheinu.
Please unmute the rabbi.
Ve'ishtachavu le'ar kodsho. Uh-oh. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. This is not the right scroll for today.
Not in the right place.
Oh, how funny. I thought I took out the right silver. Oops. You know what?
Second day.
You know what? I think we even missed one of those ark opening videos. So why don't we play one of those while we take out a different Torah scroll? Let's remain standing, since we'll be standing anyway as we take a different Torah scroll out of the ark. I apologize, everyone. In the excitement of sharing the bima with someone this morning, I took out the wrong scroll. My apologies. Some words of Shana Tova.
Shana Tova from the Mermelsteins.
Jules,
Ruth,
and Taco.
happy and healthy New Year. Second day.
No, Misha Berach. Too far, too fast. Please excuse the analog difficulty. Sorry about that, everybody.
Hold on 1 second.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, let's swap these out a second.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is the right scroll. I apologize. we can be seated. I apologize, everybody. So, this morning we pick up where we left off with the story of our first family of Jewish tradition, the story of the family of Abraham. Yesterday morning, we experienced the near tragedy of Ishmael and his mother Hagar being sent off into the desert, presumably to their death, by Abraham under the instruction of Sarah, his wife, and the salvation of both of them, Ishmael and Hagar, at the hands of the divine, or an angel of the divine, a Malach Adonai, a messenger or an angel of God, asked Hagar, Malach, what's going on with you? I know there's some cool wordplay there. When we get to that parsha this fall, we'll do the wordplay during Torah study. And Hagar opens her eyes and lifts up her head, and the two of them are spared, are saved, are rehydrated by a well of water. This morning, we read the story of the near death of the other of Abraham's sons, Isaac, by his own father's hand, Abraham, as God calls on Abraham. So last time it was Sarah who called on Abraham to send out Ishmael and Hagar. This morning, it is God who calls out to Abraham to take his son, his only son, the one who he loves, and to sacrifice him at the top of Har Moriah. Things don't go so well in early life for sons of Abraham. I'm just saying. So anyone whose father's name is Abraham, just beware. But seriously, Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, has so many parallels to this story that we read yesterday of the near death of Ishmael, again saved by the hand of a Malach Adonai, a messenger of the divine, this time who calls out, Abraham, calls out to Abraham to stop as his knife is raised up over the boy, rather than to call out Malach to Hagar. But just like Hagar, Abraham lifts up his eyes and sees not a well, but a ram stuck by its horns in the thickets. Oh, sorry, Amy Gross. Sorry about that, to hear that your father's name is Abraham. Yeah, look out. Stuck by his horns in the thickets to come as a substitution for Isaac, as a sacrifice in his place. This has been a year of sacrifice for all of us. Thank God, a year of sacrifices from which we are coming out of, hopefully stronger and with stronger relationships with one another, rather than this story, which I can only assume leaves those who have been through it with fragmented and weaker relationships. How Avraham and Yitzchak face one another again after this, I don't know. And many poets and midrashists have envisioned a father and son who don't speak ever again. How Abraham and Sarah speak after this, I don't know. And several poets and contemporary poets and both ancient and contemporary midrashists imagine a Sarah who dies of a broken heart because of Abraham's near sacrifice of Isaac, because we know that the first words of the next Torah portion, right, we learn at the beginning of Parshat Chayei Sarah that Sarah has died, and we gather for her burial. Sacrifice is a funny thing. It does funny things to all of us. We often think of sacrifice as something that shows how strong we are. When we're willing to sacrifice something we love, when we're willing to sacrifice something that brings us a bit of joy, like chocolate, for the sake of our health. Or like going to the grocery store and selecting our own fruits and vegetables in order to sustain one another's health and the health of our community during a time of a public health crisis. Or the ability to be together in the same room on the high holidays. We think of it as something that makes us stronger. But sacrifice, when we don't think through it all the way, when we don't question what we are sacrificing for, when we don't do the cost-benefit analysis, but we only think of the one side, we fall into the trap of Avraham. We sacrifice not that thing that we went out to sacrifice or were asked to sacrifice, but we sacrifice things that are far more important. Relationships with loved ones, the ability to live in a safe home filled with love. This year for me has been a year of beautiful sacrifices. Sacrificing being present at Or Hadash for services in order to serve everyone's public health and asking everyone else to stay home as we've tried to mitigate the COVID-19 pandemic has brought my family back together around the Shabbat dinner table. I don't know if anyone else has noticed who comes on a Friday night, but I lead Shabbat services when we're remote from the end of my Shabbat dinner table. That means that every single week during the past 18 months, I've gotten to have Shabbat dinner at home with my young kids. Sacrifices that we've made this year have brought us closer to members of our communities as we've taken walks in green space and met our neighbors that we've never met before, explored trails and paths that we've never seen. It's brought us to the place of being more comfortable with technologies that connect us. How many of us have been asked before the pandemic to Zoom or FaceTime or something like that with grandchildren or family afar and didn't know how to hook up our webcams? We all know how to do that now. And so now at a time of illness or distance for other reasons long down the road, we can gather together. We can be together. We can Zoom in to a funeral or a wedding or a bar mitzvah. We can connect members of our community who are in the hospital to regular Shabbat services when we had never been able to have that capacity to live stream. Because each of the sacrifices we've made, we've looked at from all of the sides, and not just with the myopic view that we see Avraham take this morning. And I want to invite us into this story in that place of looking at Avraham, looking at the mistakes that he makes as he prepares to make this sacrifice. Imagine whether or not he has learned a lesson at the end as he raises up his eyes and sees the ram. What he should have said at the beginning, if there was a way that he could have entered into dialogue with voices that are silenced. God speaks to Abraham, and Abraham does. God does not speak to Abraham, and Abraham talks to Isaac and talks to Sarah, and they sit down as a family and decide how they're going to navigate this moment together in a way that brings them closer and makes them stronger. And so as we read our story of the Akedah this morning, I want us to enter into it through the lens of taking that hard look at Avraham, seeing ourselves in that person, or perhaps seeing dafka not ourselves in that person. What are the choices we've made to make sacrifices that draw us closer and not that divide, that don't divide us from family or from community, but rather bring us together in new ways and raise up all of our collective holiness. So our Torah reading begins today with our first aliyah on page 504. Na vayazor v'yin ve'oshia l'chol ha'chosim bo v'nomar. Amen. Kol hav'godel Eloheinu udnu kavod laTorah. Na la'amod, and we call Kol Chevre v'ad ha'chesed la'aliyah harishona. Chava bat Baruch v'Rezel v'Esther bat David v'Tova. For the first Aliyah, we call all of the members of our Chesed committee, those who sustain us during times where we need to step out, times of joy, welcoming new children, new life into our families, also times of difficulty after loss or during times of ill health. Those who care for us when we are in need of care. L'Aliyah Harishona, and representing them with this Aliyah, we spotlight Ellie Rosenberg and Edith Lane, and we call Jeff Chebet to the Torah to Lane for us. Baruch Shnatan Torah Le'amo Yisrael, Bigduhu Shato, V'atem Advekim B'Adonai Elohechem, V'yim Kulchem Hayom. Let's see, Vayehi Chad Hadvarim Ha'ela. Char Hadvarim Ha'ela. Let's see, there's a famine. Yeah, let's go back before. Let's see where we are here. Where are we? Come back. No. Oh wait, maybe forwards. Nope, here we go. This is where Isaac is born. Keep going forwards.
What is that?
That's Isaac is old. Go back. Okay. Bela told Yitzchak ben Avraham. No.
Vayehi achar.
Vayehi hadvarim.
Achar hadvarim.
Yes, achar hadvarim ha'ela. How did we were just here yesterday. Hold on one moment, please.
Maybe a little bit back, actually.
Okay. You look there.
Vayehi ba'et hahi is immediately preceding.
What?
Vayehi ba'et hahi is immediately preceding paragraph.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Thank you. We're in Beersheba. All right, there we are. And so, Ellie.
Baruch Adonai Havarach. Baruch Adonai Havarach Li'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Karvanu Li'avodato V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayehi achar hadvarim ha'ele v'ha'Elohim nisa et Avraham vayomer elav Avraham vayomer hineni vayomer kachna et bincha et yechidcha asher ahavta et Yitzchak v'lech lecha el eretz hamoria v'ha'alehu sham leolah al achad ha'arim asher omar elecha. Vayashkem Avraham baboker, vayachavosh et chamoroho, vayikach et shnei ne'arav ito, ve'et Yitzchak beno, vayvaka atzei olah, vayakom vayelech el hamakom asher amar lo ha'Elohim.
All right, and the blessing after?
Adonai Eloheinu
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan Torah Olam nata b'tochenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah.
Amen. We're not replaced. No, we're not. That's why you saw her. It's like, Na'amod. And we call, first of all, Yesher Koach to Ellie and to Edith and to all of the members of our Chesed committee. And can everyone who is a member of Chesed actually hit the raise hand button right now so that we can all see who you are? And I want to invite, as we call each subsequent Aliyah, hey guys, as we reach each subsequent Aliyah, if you are part of this Aliyah, whether you are one of the representatives being spotlighted for the bracha or not, to take a second and hit that raise hand button so that we can see, as if we are each standing in our place, who we are calling to the Torah in our fullness. Thank you. You guys can put your hands down now. Na'amod, and we call Kol Chavurat Halimud L'Aliyah Hashniya. For the second Aliyah, we call our adult study Chavurah, represented by Meira Bracha Bat Yisrael V'Simcha Ve'ezra Ben Avram V'Sara, representing them and saying the words of the Aliyah blessing will be Michelle Smithman and Robert Goldberg Alberts. But if you're part of the adult study Chavurah, please raise up your hand so that we can see who you are. All right, and let's find in the Torah where we are. Here, can I see? Where are we here? Okay.
Yom HaShlishi.
Yep. Sorry, we had a small loss of place situation. We had started at the wrong Vayhi Acharei V'haya Acharei Hadvarim Ha'ela. V'sarai Eshet Avram. Nope.
It's before that. See, Patuach before that.
Yeah. Oh, that's where we started yesterday. Vayhi Be'et Hahi. Amar Avimelech. Yep, that's where we are. Got it. Okay, so we're starting at right down a couple lines by Yom HaShlishi. All right, and Michelle, we're showing you where you are in the Torah scroll, and then you can sort of hold your seat to the camera and say our bracha.
Okay. Baruch Adonai Hamvorah. Baruch Adonai Habarach Li'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Kirvanu Lavod Ato V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Bayom HaShlishi, Vayisa Avraham et Enav, Vayar et Hamakom merachok, Vayomer Avraham el Ne'arav, Shvu lachem po im hachamor, Va'ani v'hana'ar nilcha ad ko, V'nishtachaveh v'nashuva alechem. Vayikach Avraham et atzei ha'olah, Vayasem al Yitzchak beno, Vayikach biyado et ha'esh ve'et ha'ma'achelet, Vayelchu shnehem yachdav, Vayomer Yitzchak el Avraham aviv, Vayomer avi, Vayomer hineni beni, Vayomer Hine ha'esh v'ha'etzim ve'ayeh ha'aseh le'olah. Vayomer Avraham Elohim yir'elahu aseh le'olah b'ni. Vayelchu shnehem yachdav.
And the blessing after Robert.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher netan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam nata b'tohenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yesher koach. And thank you, Bernie, for the reminder of the use of the super yacht to hold our place between aliyot.
Oh, wow, amazing.
And it also serves as the introduction between Sarah and the super yacht. Yesher koach to all of the members of our adult study chavurah. I want to note that many may have noticed on our schedule the different place in the high holidays this year of the adult study chavurah. Next year, God willing, poo, as we return fully in person, as this pandemic, God willing, will be maybe, hopefully, behind us. They will return to their regular place on Rosh Hashanah. But this year, please join the adult study chavurah as they lead us in study all afternoon long for a long stretch on Yom Kippur, following the healing service and preceding Yisker. And they will be on Zoom right here on this link. And Michelle, thank you for your leadership of this group over the years, and for everyone for lending your scholarship, your creativity, your passion for Jewish learning, as you hold all of us up and enrich all of us with your learning and with your teaching. And we say V'nomar, Amen. And our third aliyah continues with those who support us in a very different way and sustain and hold us up in a very different way. Nala Amod, and we call Kol Chevrei Va'ad Habinyan La Aliyah HaShlishit. For the third aliyah, we call our Buildings and Grounds Committee, who will be represented this morning by Ted Apple, whose Hebrew name I don't have in front of me. Now, and please hit your button if you are a part of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Will be represented by Tuvia Ben.
Yeah, Tevye Ben Reuben Vifredo.
Tevye Ben Reuben Vifredo. And the rest of the Buildings and Grounds Committee, Laliyah HaShlishit. And Sarah will show you where in the Torah we are starting. We are on page 508.
Just help from my camera person. No.
All right, Ted.
All right. Baruch et Adonai haborah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kervonu v'avodato v'natamanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo haElohim vayiven sham Avraham et hamizbeach vayaroch et ha'etzim vayakad et Yitzchak beno vayasem oto al hamizbeach mimala etzim vayishlach Avraham et yado vayikach et hama'achelet leishchot et beno vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim vayomer Avraham vayomer hineni vayomer Al tishlach yadcha el hana'ar ve'al ta'aslo me'uma ki ata yadati ki yirei Elohim ata ve'lo chasata et bincha et yechidcha mimeni vayisa Abraham et enav vayar v'hine ayil Achar echaz basvach bekarnav vayelech Abraham vayikach et ha'ayil vayalehu leolah tachat beno. Vayikra Abraham Shem hamakom hahu Adonai yireh Asher ye'amer hayom Behar Adonai yera'eh.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam notah b'safenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
And Elisa, thanks for the question. We're going to try to get the camera a little bit closer to the Torah. That's a great suggestion. And so we'll pause here for a moment for a Mishaberach L'cholim, a prayer for healing and wholeness. And I want to invite people to share in the chat names of all of those about whom you're thinking this morning, those who are in need of healing, healing of body, healing of mind, healing of spirit. At this time, we're thinking of so many who were affected both in this region and across the Northeast and down in the South and in Tennessee, who were affected by the flooding and the winds produced by Hurricane Ida. We're thinking this morning also of all of those, the family of the soldiers killed in Afghanistan, and the families of all of the Afghans who are unable to get out of cities like Kabul and throughout the country. We're thinking of all of those who've lost loved ones to gun violence in the past year. We're thinking of those whose health problems, both mental health and physical health, have deteriorated due to isolation this year, and all of those who are suffering the long-term effects of COVID-19, all of the long haulers, and also all of those in ICUs, emergency rooms, hospital wards across our country and across our world as we continue to battle and mitigate the effects of COVID-19. And this morning we're thinking of and sending our hopes and our energy for healing and wholeness also as well to Neil Berlin, Sue and Dennis Courtwright, Ann Lefko, Michael Feit, Matt Alexander, Lynn, David Richmond, Sandy Roberts, Marion Foreman, Leanne Mantha, Miles and Bree, Shmuel Gerson ben Avram Vachana, Judy Suter, Marcy Cherry, Shelley Shumas, Lloyd Suter, Jenna Young, Craig Oster, Eric Griffin Shelley, June Powell, Ralph Temple, Lenny Stern and Annie Livingston, Paul Hull, Hunter Anwar, Herda Kane, and all of those students in all of our schools who are going back, especially those who are going back to schools in areas without mask mandates. Zach Latchman, and I'll hold this place in the chat as we continue with joining with our choir in our Mishaberach, and we'll continue to share names as well after. Rosine Paul, Debbie Hoffman, Bobby Olchin, Jean Horowitz.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
Grant Solomon, Mel Goddesfeld, Arlene Menz, Mandel, Damon Solomon, and Nancy Hyman, and Dorothy Berlin and Marcy Fish, and all of those who are in need of healing and in our hearts today. We continue on page 510 with our fourth Aliyah. Nala Amod, and we call Minahelet HaChinuch, Mora Barbara, Vechevre Va'ad Halimud, Aliyah HaRevi'it. For the fourth Aliyah, we call Mora Barbara, our Director of Education, and representing the ESC, our Education Steering Committee, Jen Lavenberg, Yehudit Bracha, Bat Lev Shmuel, V'Mazel Rachol, Aliyah HaRevi'it. And again, if you're a member of the ESC and your picture is up here, do also hit that raise hand button so that we can all see you up to the top of all of our
No. Or it's
Just
next to
wave
the
like
cha-
that. Like
Oh,
it-
they don't show in the
Oh,
show in the pictures.
well, they know you're there.
Yeah.
All right, and we will show you where in the chat, or where in the scroll we are.
Let's see if that's better.
There we go. Aha! Here, these are our marks up here. Yeah. Is that good? Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Krivanu Lavadot V'tanat Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayikra Malach Adonai el Abraham Shenit min hashamayim Vayomer Binishpati neum Adonai Ki ya'an asher asita et hadavar hazeh ולא חסכת את בנך, את יחידך, כי ברך ברכך, והרבה את זרעך, ככוכבי השמיים, וכחול אשר על שפת הים, וירש זרעך את שער אויביו, והתברכו זרעך כל גויי הארץ, עקב אשר שמעת בקולי, וישוב אברהם אל נעריו, ויקומו, וילכו יחדיו אל באר שבע, וישב אברהם בבאר שבע.
Wait, Jen, you're muted. There you go. Oh. Go ahead.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu et Torat emet v'hayei olam bat olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
I want to give a big yesher koach to the ESC and to Mora Barbara. Actually, I realized that actually today Mora Barbara, so usually on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, Mora Barbara comes up with the ESC for an Aliyah. Because on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, we usually don't have as robust a children's program. This morning, because yesterday we had children's programming inside of the building, masked and socially distanced, especially for some of our youngest children, today, she is doing an outdoor program for children. She is currently with all of them on a second day Rosh Hashanah hike in Harriet Weatherall Park, doing a tefillah hike and being in nature on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. And my guess is that since they're all across from Maple Acres Farm right now, that they may also be going across afterwards, at least that's my family's plan, to grab some fresh apples for apples and honey. So if we were wondering where Mora Barbara was, rather than on for her Aliyah today, she's actually out with the kids right now. And so truly, Yesher Koach to all of you on all of your hard work, both on preparing for this year's high holidays, and as this is a year where the holidays fall early on the Gregorian calendar, figuring out how to start the school year in the midst of COVID-19 during the high holidays, as the school year begins this coming Sunday morning between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So Yesher Koach to all of you, and Chazak, strength to all of you as we begin a new school year. Staying on the theme of education, our fifth aliyah, Nala Amod, and we call Kol Hamorimot, V'Milamedimot, B'Kihila Kedosha Hazot, Aliyah Chamishit. And just hit your button as I call you or your category. For the fifth aliyah, we call all of our teachers, our Smile School teachers, our Madrichim, all of those who taught during Shavuot, Maurice Harris, Suzanne Castor, Andrea Jacobs, Marty Jacobs, no relation, both for Shavuot and for Musar, Jeff Chebet for Monday Night Torah Study and serving as our laning coordinator, Manny Rosenberg, chair of our adult education, and everyone else who taught something this year. Please hit that raise hand button so we can hold you all up high as we call our teachers to the Torah. This will be represented by Mackenzie Learn and Marty Jacobs, Malka Bat Velvel Varachal, Moshe Ben Shmuel Halevi Vitova. And Mackenzie, that's a fabulous virtual background.
Our first Hebrew letter is Taf, so I needed a good picture for that, so that's what I stole. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher karvanu lavodato v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vayi acharei hadvarim ha'ele ויוגד לאברהם לאמור, הנה ילדה מילכה גם היא, בנים לנחור אחיך, את עוץ בכורו ואת בוז אחי, ואת כמואל אבי ארם, ואת כסד ואת חזו, ואת פלדש ואת ידלף, ואת בתואל, ובתואל ילד את רבקה. שמונה אלה ילדה מילכה לנחור אחי אברהם, ופילגשו ושמה ראומה, ותלד גם היא את טבח ואת גחם, ואת תחש ואת מאחה.
And Marty for our blessing after.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. To all of you who have taught us this year, taught us Torah, taught us trope, taught us ethics, taught us words of philosophy, engaged us in study across all ages and stages, individually and in groups. May your Torah allow all of our eyes to shine with Torah, and may our mouths fill with Torah as we teach your words forward to others. V'nomar, and we say, Amen. Yes, Jeff?
Rabbi, I swear, one year I'm going to go off script. I'm going to have Abraham and Isaac shoot hoops up on Mount Moriah.
Seriously, that's what there were like, I think I counted 4 points this morning when they could have turned to one another and had a conversation about this and figured out a way through. Not a single one. Not a single time. Not even as he was putting Isaac on top of the sticks did they have a conversation. So many missed opportunities. Yesher Koach, Jeff, for this beautiful laning this morning. And let us lift up these words of Torah as we call forward by video Rob and Debbie to lift and wrap the Torah. Nala Amod, Hamagbia, Nala Amod, Hagol We rise in spirit or in body as our scroll is lifted. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe, still on, lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Oh wait, I'll just Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Hey, Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Hey, Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Hey, Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Morasha Kehilat Yaakov, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov, Morasha Kehilat Yaakov, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. Hey, Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 tziva lanu Moshe. Yesher koach, and we can be seated. All right. We can be seated. Bring me back. There we go. It is my pleasure to call up Sarah Brammer-Shlay. Are we going to be calling you Rabbi Sarah? What are we going to be calling you?
Rabbi Sarah.
Rabbi Sarah it is. Rabbi Sarah, to offer us our words of Torah today, our sermon on the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Shana Tova, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here today with you on Rosh Hashanah and also be serving as the parental leave rabbi while Rabbi Alanna is on family leave from the end of September through mid-December. So once again, my name is Sarah Brammer-Shlay, Rabbi Sarah, and I'm in my last year of rabbinical school at the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College. So just a little by means of introduction. I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but have been on the East Coast for about a decade now, having lived 5 years in Washington, D.C. before moving to Philadelphia 4 years ago to start rabbinical school. I grew up knowing very little about Reconstructionist Judaism, but when I found my way to it as an adult, I thought to myself, wow, this is exactly how I've thought about Judaism my whole life, but I didn't have language for it before. So I feel really lucky to have found this movement and to be a part of a community that embodies the values that it does. And I'm really excited to deepen my learning by being part of an exciting and thriving Reconstructionist community like Or Hadash. So thank you again. One thing that I have learned about myself throughout rabbinical school is that I believe in making things explicit, in taking what is subtle or under the surface and bringing it to light. I've learned that by breaking away from the fear and hesitation that we often have to discuss challenging topics, we move towards acknowledging that those are precisely the topics that we need to be discussed most. This belief has been at the core of much of my rabbinic work, in particular my social justice work and my work creating accessible and open spaces for people to discuss what God and divinity does, doesn't, or could mean for them. I have found in my experiences that by making things explicit, we allow ourselves opportunity for new growth. When we open ourselves up to vulnerable topics that are on our heart, but ones we might be pushing away, we often learn new things about ourselves, as well as our community. This approach of bringing things to the surface is something I now see as a central component of what we do and what we read each year on Rosh Hashanah. In the story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac that we just read, Abraham and Isaac find themselves in a moment that provides a new layer of pain and memory in their lives. Abraham is ready to follow God's commandment by sacrificing his beloved son Isaac. Right as this is about to occur, God intervenes to present a ram to take Isaac's place. It is one of the most tense and emotional stories in Torah, and we read it on Rosh Hashanah each year. A day where we stop to reflect and pay close attention to what it means to live. Right after this moment where God brings in a ram after testing Abraham's dedication, we read something fascinating. Vayikra Avraham Shem Hamakom Hahu Adonai Yireh Asher Ya'amer Hayom Bechar Adonai Yireh. Abraham called this place Adonai Yireh, God sees. Hence, it is said that on this day, on the mountain of God, there is vision. When reading this passage, I was struck by this line and went back several times to reread it. I thought, is it really saying that Avraham Kara, Abraham named this mountain? Why is this detail important to include? And why read this on Rosh Hashanah? One aspect of Rosh Hashanah that is well known is the emphasis on this time as one for reflection. A critical aspect of the process of reflection is the ability to name and pinpoint your experiences. By Abraham naming the place where this life-changing and honestly traumatic thing occurred, it weaves reflection into the fabric of this story and into the fabric of this holiday. How can we possibly reflect without naming our experiences? It is a part of our process of reflection and ultimately tshuva, repentance, that we can get specific about the experiences we hold in our bodies. I'm gonna make an assumption that I am not alone in feeling that the concept of time feels pretty strange right now. What happened in 5780? What happened in 5781? Are we supposed to consider it a year since the pandemic started? Perhaps some of you have begun to mark time through another large occasion in your life, whether it be a big move or the loss of a loved one or of a sacred happy occasion. I've noticed that I tend to lump the whole pandemic under the umbrella of last year, when in fact, as we all know, it has been unfortunately longer than just 1 year. Time has begun to blur, and it's hard to know where to mark time from and how to make meaning within this blurry moment we find ourselves in. In addition to the blurriness of time, we have the deep pain and trauma we have been enduring for the last year and a half of the pandemic, and more time than that when we include our own personal and collective struggles. It is hard to get specific when the pain feels overwhelming. For some of us, we might have one moment over the last year that really serves as a symbol for our current emotional state. And for some of us, we might be living in the overwhelm. I saw a poignant cartoon the other day circulating on social media. Perhaps some of you saw it as well. It was a person who was sitting at a table with their head down. On one side of them were many bottles of lemonade, and on the other side was some sort of device that was shooting lemons at them. The individual stopped being able to make lemonade from the lemons. It was just too much, and all they could do was put their head on the table. Sometimes we can make lemonade when we have lemons. Sometimes we get hit in the head with the lemons. And sometimes we step back and just watch the lemons fall. When I think about the year we have had and Abraham naming the mountain where he almost sacrificed his son as Adonai Yireh, God sees, I'm called back to one of my favorite pieces of text, a midrash from Genesis Rabbah. The midrash expands on the story of Joseph and his brothers. Joseph had 11 brothers, but was his father's favorite. There was immense jealousy from his brothers, and they decided to plot against him. The brothers threw Joseph into a pit and sold him into slavery. This midrash from Genesis Rabbah teaches that years later, when his father Jacob dies, Joseph returns to the pit that he had been thrown into. He returns to this pit where he had been betrayed by his brothers, and his brothers were there at this moment when this happened. And as he approaches the pit and his brothers watch him, they are concerned that he still holds a grudge against them for the terrifying and dreadful act that they did to him. But instead, Joseph goes to the pit, peers in, and says a blessing of appreciation and acknowledgement. He says a blessing in the precise location of this major trauma. Joseph names where this tremendously painful thing occurred as a way of reflecting and a way of stepping in a new direction. He does not run away from this specific moment of pain and hurt, but decides to acknowledge its presence. It's there. Sometimes seeing it, noting it, that's all we can do. It is not always possible to make meaning. It is not always possible to find a silver lining. Sometimes all we can see and feel is the pain of the moment. For now, acknowledgement and naming the feeling might be all we can handle. Acknowledging the pain we have all experienced is not a way to sugarcoat it, but it is a necessary step in recognizing the reality of our situation. Naming something painful is brave, and it can provide us a path which builds our resilience, provides possibility of connection, and sets us on the journey towards healing. Whether it be in the story of Joseph, the story of Abraham and Isaac, or our own stories, we never get rid of moments of deep pain. That's not the goal. However, by naming these moments, we increase the possibility of bringing our own agency and control to how our memories serve us. When Abraham names the mountain where he almost had to kill his son Adonai Yireh, God sees, he creates a container for his memory of this moment. This moment of life is given a place of origin and ultimately provides a pathway to making meaning from it. Being intentional with how we form, name, and carry on memories is a deep part of Jewish tradition. Jewish scholar Yosef Chaim Yerushalmi writes in his book Zachor about the concept of memory in Jewish tradition. Yerushalmi states that Jews don't really do history, we do memory. As a people, we know the power of creating emotional containers for remembering and making meaning. On Yom HaShoah, we remember the tragedy of the Holocaust. On Passover, we remember our exodus from slavery. And on Rosh Hashanah, we create a container for our own personal reflection. Who have we harmed? What has harmed us? How can the next year build upon the last? And perhaps this year, the question is simply, what even happened this past year? Beginning with the month of Elul, leading up to today, and from now until Yom Kippur, each of us are invited to embark on our own process of naming and shaping our memories of the year. What are the pivotal moments that made up your year? How do you want to name their memory, their impact? Abraham named the mountain where he almost sacrificed his son, Adonai Yireh, God sees. In reflecting on this horrific event, Abraham chose to focus on God's seeing and God's support. That was the foundation of his container of memory for this moment. As Rabbi Alanna discussed yesterday, we are embarking on and have been experiencing a time of uncertainty. And when we find ourselves in moments like this, when the lemons keep shooting at us, it can help to get more specific, to just find one thing to hold on to, one thing to name and note. When there is so much we do not know, it is often good to be honest about what we do know. So as we enter 5782, I invite you to think about what you might need to move forward. Are you in need of a moment like Joseph, where you go to the pit and peer in? Maybe you just stand there. Maybe you name that there is a pit in front of you. And maybe, just maybe, you say a blessing. Perhaps if you are not ready to say a blessing at this moment, you just give it a little hello, a little I see you, you happen to me, you exist. Or maybe you are more in the place of Abraham, seeking to make meaning of some of the pain you experienced. Maybe you need to mark time to make a distinction between something that occurred and what is now. And what you need to do is to do this in order to make this transition in our calendar. One of my favorite things about Judaism is our calendar. It is the emotional intelligence of the way our holidays are structured and also their cyclical nature. We read the Torah over and over again each year. We mark Shabbat week after week. We, God willing, get Rosh Hashanah each year. New opportunities to learn, to look back, and to look forward. I invite you to be a little easier on yourself this year, though. We cannot always be Joseph going straight to the pit and blessing it. We cannot always be Abraham making meaning right after a traumatic event. But what we can do is always do our best to be honest with ourselves and others about where we are emotionally, about where we are spiritually. From that point is when we can build stronger communities rooted in the true needs of each other and ourselves. And I look forward to doing that with you over the next few months. So using the chat feature now on Zoom, I invite you to take a minute to reflect. If there are moments in your year you want to name, you want to build into the foundation of your year, you are welcome to put that in the chat now and to trust that your community will be a part of holding that foundation for you. So we'll just take a minute now for folks to put, if there are certain moments that people are feeling brave and want to share, to put in the chat, and then continue to put those in throughout the rest of the service as well. So we'll take a moment to do this now. Lisa says her mother's passing in January. Acknowledging the people who created and gave us COVID vaccines. Anne's father's passing. Mackenzie's daughter's bat mitzvah. The tornado. Daughter starting college. Heart surgery, support and recovery. Thank you for sharing all these, and once again I invite you to continue to share these, and my hope and my blessing for all of you is that these memories continue to be a part of the foundation, and may we continue to learn from them and also be in community in support of each other as we reflect on the past year that was and move forward to the year to come. So thank you very much, and Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, Yesher Koach. And as each and every one of these markings, these seeings, these being seens are entered into the chat, we mingle them together with the words of the prayer for our country. I want to highlight, spotlight, I believe Wendy and John to share our prayer for the country. It can also be found in our supplement, and I want to give a shout out to Elisa Belzer, who is here today, who led many members of our community in the creation of this new prayer for the country last March. Not this past one, the one the year before, March 2020.
What do I desire for my country? How do I envision the land I love?
Let it be a land where knowledge is free. May all our people live together as one family.
A land where we emerge from this with more caring, a greater appreciation for each other.
A land where no one is forced to go to bed hungry or to live on the streets.
A land where everyone loves themselves well enough to love their fellow human beings as themselves, as we are commanded.
A land with a wise, humane leader to serve as a role model for the country.
A land where our leaders speak the truth.
A land where our leaders truly work for the greater good.
A land of compassion where we all work and play together.
Where poles of separation become poles of mutual support and understanding.
where reason wins out over blind faith,
where we recover our historic genius for voluntary community commitment,
where our vision is restored to embrace humanity, inclusiveness, and empathy,
a land where the light within each of us can begin to illuminate the world,
where as we care for each other, we don't forget to care for our fragile earth,
where there is equitable medical care for all,
a land where we have economic security and justice for all,
a land where kids are free to be happy and thrive and grow,
a land that once again becomes the huddled masses yearning to breathe free,
where we all have the support and love of community,
a land where we work together for the good of all,
a land where voters make wise decisions and we work to make sure that all voices and votes are heard and properly counted,
a land where knowledge and expertise are more valued in all ways so that people are motivated to become epidemiologists and teachers rather than reality TV stars or influencers,
where the mind is led forward into an ever-widening thought and action.
Into that heaven of freedom, let my country awake.
And Omar, and we say, Amen. We turn together to the prayers for putting away the Torah on page 598. Ya hallelujah et Shem Adonai ki nisgav shemo levado hodu al eretz v'shamayim v'yarin keren li'amo tila lechol chasidav livnei Yisrael am karovo. Hallelujah. Page 606. We rise in spirit or in body as our ark is open. Peggy Mandel.
Hello, Or Hadash family. Peggy Mandel here, wishing each and every one of you Lashana Tova, health, happiness, goodness, happy times with family in the coming year. Lashana Tova.
Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuvah
be seated. All of humanity is founded on dust. Of dust we are made, into dust we return. Like vessels of clay, we can break. Like grass, we can wither. Like flowers, we fade. Like shadows, we pass. Like clouds, we are emptied. Like wind, our strength is exhausted. Like dust, we are scattered about. Like a dream, we vanish from sight. These last months have made us acutely aware of how vulnerable we are in our bodies, made of dust, how easily we and our loved ones are overtaken by illness, isolation, despair, the whiplash of the Delta variant, throwing everything into confusion again as we return to dust. We begin by acknowledging, as we stand here at the beginning of our shofar service, that we are not all-powerful or all-knowing. Every week at the beginning of the Amidah prayer, we bend our knees when we say the word Baruch. And then we bow our heads when we say the word Atah, are you. Humbling ourselves before God and before the vastness of the universe. Then we stand upright when we say God's name Adonai, because God wants us as full partners in the ongoing work of creation. We also need a reminder that we are human. We are not God. We are not all-powerful, though we might often wish we were. That we are not in control, though we might often wish we were. That we are not immortal. Today, on Rosh Hashanah, we bow and we flatten ourselves to the ground at the beginning of the great Aleinu. We surrender to our vulnerability. We surrender to our lack of control. We surrender today knowing, perhaps more than ever before, at the beginning of this new year, our frailty, our finiteness, and our limitations. But then once we have gone all the way down to the floor and embraced that we are close to dust, we do not stay prostrate. We stand upright at Lifnei Melech Malchei Hamlachim, knowing that we are more. We are both dust and stardust. We contain the swirl of ancient galaxies. We raise our eyes from the ground, raise ourselves up from the earth, and look beyond the confines of our ego, our emotions, to see how hope and holiness imprint in this world. Bayom hahu yihyeh Adonai echad ushmo echad, that there will be a day when all of us will join in one voice, praising together the source of all, by one name in many languages, by one name with many faces, hand in hand. We turn in our Sidurim, our Machzorim, to the great Aleinu. Aleinu, l'shabeach, l'adon hakol, l'tet gedula le'otzer bereshit, שנתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם, נטע בתוכנו ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים. Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. We turn to a reflection of memory, of zichronot, as we call forward Bert Siegel to share with us on page 650. Ooh, and the apples and honey are already flowing at Bert's.
Oh. Zichronot reading 5.
Yep, that's the one.
Out of the debris of dying stars, this rain of particles that water the waste with brightness. The sea wave of storms hurrying home, collapse of the giant, unstable guest who cannot stay. The sun's heart reddens and expands. His mighty aspiration is lasting as the shell of his substance. One day we will be white with frost. One day we'll be white with frost, I'm sorry. In the radiant field of Orion, great hordes of stars are forming, just as we see every night, fiery and faithful to the end. Out of the cold and fleeting dust that is never and always, the silence and waste to come, this arm, this hand, my voice, your face, this love.
And I want to invite us. So I did not know the beautiful prompt that Rabbi Sarah would leave us with. Oh,
No,
nice
yet,
shofar blowing.
Not yet.
Oh, we're going to come back to you guys in about 7 minutes. Addie
is just rehearsing.
Oh, good. Well, I'm going to put you back on mute for rehearsal, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So I had in my notes here that I was going to invite us to go into some breakout rooms for a moment and speak the words I remember or I feel remembered when, and share moments from this past year that call us to presence in this moment of zichronot. I had no idea that Rabbi Sarah and I were on such an amazing cosmic wavelength together. So I want to invite us, as we reflect on these words, out of the cold and fleeting dust that is never and is always, the silence and waste to come, this arm, this hand, my voice, your face, this love, to scroll up in our chat and find someone's words that were not your own. Find someone's zikaron, someone's memory that was not your own. Because as Rabbi Sarah so beautifully quoted from that text, Zachor, that Jews don't do history, we do memory. And I invite you to enter into someone else's zikaron right now, someone else's memory in this community, and embody it as if it were yours. Feel yourself in it. If you haven't already, take a look at whose memory it is and feel yourself standing next to that person in it, experiencing it with them. The joy or the fear, the sadness or the excitement, the anger or the frustration, the anticipation, all the feels. Whether it's a place you have been in 20 years ago, a place you hope to be in 15 more years. Mine was my daughter starting college first in her room at home and now on campus. And envisioning myself standing next to Elise and David as they stand with Sharon in that first dorm room. Imagining myself standing next to Bina in that dorm room like 14 years from now. That nexus of time that is collective memory as we embrace this middle section of Zichronot. And as we scroll back down to the present in our chat and in our service, we hold ourselves in all of our fullness as we invite to the front Sandy Saul to share with us a meditation for shofarot.
Let's begin by taking a comfortable seat. Place your hands on your thighs and turn your attention to your breath. Breathing evenly in and out through your nose, if that is comfortable for you. Allow your eyes to close or your gaze to soften, and feel your feet, thighs, and hips rooting down heavily towards the earth, while the crown of your head lifts, your spine lengthens, the vertebrae unravel like a string of pearls, aligning you physically and energetically, and creating space and room for the breath. As your breath deepens, notice that the mind begins to quiet. And when your mind wanders, as it naturally will, gently and with compassion, draw your focus back to your breath. At this season of teshuvah, returning, repairing, renewing, consider this question: what is perfection? Is it possible or even necessary to be perfect? Or should our goal be that continuous journey, the never-ending process of growth and awareness that leads to a deepening and understanding of self and an opening of the heart? Turn your attention inward and notice the battle raging inside you, that tug of war between the words imperfect and I'm perfect. Where along that tightrope do you find yourself today? Perhaps this ideal of perfection is really just an illusion, a state of being that is constantly in flux. We are more perfect today than we were yesterday, and less perfect today than we could be tomorrow. Invite your breath to fill the space of the heart chakra, the energetic center of love, compassion, and gratitude. The symbol for this chakra is a six-pointed star, two triangles. One points down towards the earth, offering the energy of rooting, grounding, and stability. The other points upwards to the heavens, infused with the energy of being uplifted, elevated, and free. The union of these opposite energies is found at the heart center where the triangles overlap. Which energy would best serve you today? Call upon it and breathe in, saying the word pitach, open. Breathe out and say the word libi, my heart. Repeat this phrase with each breath. Pitach libi, open my heart. Imagine that with each breath, your ruach, your life force energy, is flowing directly into the cave of your heart, fanning the flame that burns there. Place your hands over your heart center. Right there, in the center of that six-pointed star deep in the heart, is where the Shekhinah dwells. This is where she waits. She waits for you. She waits for you to return, even in your imperfect perfection, to receive her gift of unconditional acceptance and love. Our hearts long to be in the presence of Adonai, and this longing This deep desire is the door in our hearts, which we can open, the threshold that we can cross, and the way that we can experience our own spark of divinity. Softly be, open my heart. Use your hands to draw open the doors of your heart, the door of your personal aron, and allow your inner light to shine forth. As you enter your Holy of Holies, unburden yourself. With each breath, loosen the tethers that bind you, that prevent you from knowing that you and the Shekhinah are one. Release the weight of the world from your muscles and bones. Let go. Soften. Dissolve into the sweet honey of your heart, into the Shekhinah's limitless love as she surrounds you, accepts you, and supports you just the way you are, perfectly imperfect in this very moment. All that we need is already within us. We are B'Tselem Elohim, created in the image of God and perfect in God's eyes, even with our imperfections. We often think of imperfection as a deficiency, something that makes us less than or not enough. Can we begin to see those imperfections now as gifts, even as strengths? Envision them as tiny jewels, shards of your unique self, piercing the veil that covers your heart, allowing the Shekhinah's light to shine out. And perhaps you may find that these openings also offer you a way in, a way to shed your armor, to surrender to yourself, and to come home. Begin to bring your awareness back to your surroundings as we prepare to hear the call of the shofar. Take a last full, deep inhale and a complete, sweet exhale. Draw your hands together at heart center and bow in to your own innate worthiness. Then lift your gaze and embrace the courage waiting for you as you continue across that narrow bridge from enslavement to freedom, to wholeness, and to holiness. And when you are ready, gently open your eyes and re-enter your space.
Yasher Koach, and thank you, Sandy. I want to call forward Bert to join me up here for our shofar calls. Actually, I'm going to have everyone turn to page 592 for these, for the full set. We rise in spirit or in body or in open heart. So we open ourselves up for the call of the shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Tekiah, Shevarim Teruah, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shevarim Teruah, Tikia. Tikia. Shevarim Teruah. Tikia. Tikia. Shevarim. Tikia. Tikia. Shevarim. Tikia. Tikia. Shevarim. Tikia. Tikia. Teruah. Tikia. Tikia. Teruah. Tikia. Tikia. Teruah. Tikia Gedola. Shkoach.
I hope everybody noticed that I was joined for a little while by my 4-year-old apprentice, Adelaide Siegel, and she had a little shofar with her, and she has been practicing. But then her 4-month-old sister, Bayla, started to cry. So Addie felt that she needed to tend to her sister.
Well, the sound of the shofar, it awakens us. It knocks on the doors of our hearts. It's like the axe that is the key to all doors. And it also fills us with a sense of awe and tears. So you had all of that in your house at the same time. I'm also loving the fact that you are bringing her on as an apprentice. Well done. Yesher Koach, Bert, both on today and yesterday being our Baal Shofar. Yesher Koach. And we turn together and sing Hayom, which at least yesterday was on, what? 674, that's the one. Hayom, 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 Te'am Tzenu. Hayom, 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 Tevarchenu. Hayom, 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 Tigalenu. Hayom, 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 Tidreshenu lehetova. Hayom, 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 Tichtevenu lechaim tovim. Hayom, 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 Tishma Shabbatenu. Hayom, 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 Tekabel Brachamim, Brachamim Uvratzon et Tefilatenu. Hayom, 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 Titmechenu, Bimin Tzidkecha. Amen. We turn towards the concluding of our service to page 1216 for Mourner's Kaddish, and we turn our hearts and our memories to those whom we've loved and lost. We are just at the beginning of a period of Shloshim, the month following the passing of Bill Conrad, husband of Betty Kahn. And on this Rosh Hashanah, we mark the Yortzites, the anniversaries of the passing of David Gwartzman, father of Steve Gwartzman, Elaine Adler, mother of Joe Adler, Rhoda Schacht, mother of Ed Schacht, Helena and Gilbert Pelovitz, parents of Ann Davis, Richard Eric Raisman, brother-in-law of Lucy Raisman, and of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose first Aliyah we mark this, or whose first Yortzeit we mark this Rosh Hashanah. And if there are others who are saying Kaddish, either for those who they're remembering quite acutely this Rosh Hashanah, perhaps those next to whom you used to stand who are just so present in our hearts and our memories today, I want to invite you to share them in the chat. Or if there's someone whom you're still within a period of mourning for, I want to invite you to share their name in the chat as well, so that all of them can be here with us on this Rosh Hashanah morning as we invite mourners to rise for Mourners Kaddish, along with all those whose tradition it is to rise for Kaddish. Elisa, I'm right there with you. Page 1216. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah. Be'alma, Divrach, Yerutei, V'yamlich, Malchutei, B'chayechon, Yomechon, V'chayei, Dechol Beis Yisrael, Ba'agala, U'vizman, Kariv, V'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi
Shmei Rabba Maya.
Barach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitolmam, V'yinaseh. V'yithadar, V'yitalev, V'yithalal, Shmei B'kudsha, La'elo, Mikol, Shivata, Tushbechata, V'nechamata, Da'amiran, Be'alma, V'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mamav. Ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. Amen. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be a blessing and be an inspiration for us all. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
And before we turn to the voices of our Makela for our closing song, Ahat Sha'alti, I want to give a couple of quick messages, announcements. First of all, most pressingly, at 2:30 p.m., after we all break for a little bit of lunch, we're going to join up at Cisco Park in Erdenheim for Tashlich. It is going to also include a brief shofar service, so that those who want to hear the shofar not through speakers, although I can't imagine anyone here needing to hear shofar in any other way. Bert, Yesher Koach. We will also be blowing the shofar, and we'll be joined by Michael Driver and Ruth Mermelstein, who will be blowing shofar at that service. A quick thank you to everyone who took part in today's service, aliyot, readings, Hagba and Galila, everyone, a big Yesher Koach and welcome to the Or Hadash family, to student Rabbi Sarah Brammer-Shlay, Rabbi Sarah, who will be joining us really super shortly, and who we will all get to know both on screen and in her 3 dimensions very, very soon. A couple of messages. Social Action Tikkun Olam has a message that the Mitzvah Circle has a need for school supplies and also for pants, both in adult and children's sizes. There are collection boxes for each in the community room, and that the Mitzvah Circle also has an Amazon wish list, the link to which is shared in HaKesher. Please help us by helping the Mitzvah Circle as they do their incredible work in getting ready for this new school year. From the Education Steering Committee and our school, the Share the Lev Galvanizing Our Community for the New Year In Reach Re-Engagement Program is kicking off as we speak. There will be a big Share the Lev program at the pre-Sukkot event on Sunday evening. On Sunday evening, the 19th. Please do attend. It is a program for all ages and stages, and contact Maura Barbara for more information on Share the Lev. Adult Education wants to invite us to save the date for November 21st. We will be welcoming Rabbi Sheila Peltz-Weinberg, SPW herself, below the line, to come to speak, who will be coming to speak with us on the topic of Jewish mindfulness and spirituality. In addition to her work below the line, Rabbi Dr. Sheila Peltz-Weinberg is also the founder of the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, and that will be a wonderful program. And to also keep your eyes open for a date on a Sunday morning in October, we'll be joined by Dr. Jessica Kurzane, professor of Yiddish at the University of Chicago. She will be lecturing either on the topic of the portrayal of African Americans in Yiddish literature or women and feminist Yiddish authors. So keep your eyes open for that date and topic. And lastly, I want to announce that on Monday evening, September 20th, we will be having our Erev Sukkot service in the Sukkah. And that Open Sukkah is back open. You know Open Table? Last year you experienced Open Sukkah. Make a reservation to enjoy a lovely alfresco lunch or dinner in the Or Hadash Sukkah. Bring a bottle of wine, bring a picnic, bring some friends, and reserve your time to eat in the Sukkah. The Sign Up Genius link will be sent in HaKesher, and I want to thank Jennifer Hoagland and the Spiritual Life Committee for putting together Open Sukkah again this year. Maybe next year, if we're doing Open Sukkah, we'll get an app developer on board. No, but Sign Up Genius will work. And if you haven't yet heard your announcement, it's because it will happen during Yom Kippur. Oh, and I do want to give a quick reminder, sorry to give a re-announcement, that our fantasy football draft will be tonight after Rosh Hashanah has concluded. Be in touch with Jules Mermelstein. This is the last moment to sign up for Or Hadash Fantasy Football. Drop him a line or a text or semaphore or a smoke signal so that he can send you the link for this evening's drafting for fantasy football. Because together we join on site, online, on ESPN's app, in all of the many ways we come together, both in sukkahs and in words with friends. We are just pulling out all of the stops for what community looks like here at Or Hadash right now. And so we conclude with the voices of our Makela on page 1224 with Achat Sha'alti from Psalm 27, the psalm for our season.
Achat Sha'alti bet Adonai otav akesh. Achat Sha'alti bet Adonai otav akesh. Shifti bebet Adonai kol yemei chayai. Lachasot benoam Adonai ulvaker behechalo. Lachasot benoam Adonai ulvaker behechalo. Achat sha'alti bet Adonai otav akesh. Achat sha'alti bet Adonai otav akesh. Shiti bebet Adonai kol yemei chayai. Lachasot benoam Adonai ulvaker behechalo. Lachasot benoam Adonai ulvaker behechalo.
Shana Tova Tikatevu, may we all be inscribed and held in health, in goodness, in peace, in joy, and in community in this year of 5782. Shana Tova. I want to give one more word of thanks to Pat Steinberg and to the High Holiday Task Force, to Jeff Jarvis, and to all of our digital ushers and greeters who have really brought all of this together for this year of hybrid as we join together in so many different ways and modalities. And to Josh McHugh and the incredible members of our Makela who have continued to gather and sing online and with earbuds in, and have continued to create beautiful music for our services year-round this year, including 4 new pieces for this High Holidays. And so thank you all so much for lending your voices to our beautiful service, and of course to Sandy Saul for that remarkable meditation and Shofarot. Yasher Koach, and have a wonderful and happy first day of the new year. See you all at 2:30 at Cisco Park. L'Shana Tova.